When Dexter Beaumont showed up to work at 5:45 that Tuesday morning, he had no idea it would be the last day of his life as he knew it. He was a janitor at the Caraway Grand Hotel in Millhaven, California. He had mopped those floors for 11 years. He was never late. He never caused problems. He just showed up in the dark, before anyone else arrived, and made those floors shine like mirrors, every single morning. He had a daughter he was putting through nursing school, a sister 2 streets over, a cracked tail-light Honda Civic, and a balcony with tomato plants. He did not have a lot, but he had enough, and he knew the difference. That morning, at 6:18 a.m., the front door of the hotel swung open. It was not a delivery man. It was a soaking wet old man in a brown canvas jacket, white hair plastered flat to his forehead, water running down the deep lines of his face. He had walked a quarter mile in the October rain. His car had broken down on Route 9. His phone was dead. He had nowhere else to go. Dexter had seen that face in movies since he was 8 years old. He did not say the name out loud. He just grabbed a dry towel, pulled over a good chair, and went to the back kitchen to pour the man a cup of coffee. He did not make a fuss. He did not pull out his phone to take a picture. He did not call anyone. He just helped. Because the man was cold and wet and tired, and that was reason enough. But here is what Dexter did not know. There was a security camera above the front desk. It had been recording since 6 a.m., and someone at that hotel saw the footage. Someone who had never liked Dexter. Someone who had been looking for a reason, any reason, to get rid of him for years. By 9:30 that same morning, Dexter was called into his manager's office. By 9:45, he was fired. 11 years, gone. For giving a cold man a warm cup of coffee. But the story does not end there. Because the next morning, something happened outside that hotel that left Dexter's boss standing in the lobby, mouth open, suit pressed, coffee in hand, completely and utterly speechless. And what Clint Eastwood did next, and what he whispered to Dexter on that sidewalk that made Dexter go very, very still, that is a secret that will change everything you think you know about this story. Watch the whole video, because the biggest twist doesn't come until the very end. And when it lands, it will wreck you, in the best way. The Caraway Grand Hotel had been standing in Millhaven, California since 1951. 73 years of guests, checking in and out, weddings, business trips, tired travelers who just needed a place to rest. The building had 42 rooms, a rooftop restaurant that closed every winter, and floors so clean that guests sometimes stopped walking just to look at themselves. Those floors belonged to Dexter Beaumont. Not on paper, but in every way that mattered, they were his. He had mopped them, waxed them, buffed them until they gave back light. He knew which tile near the elevator had a small chip. He knew which part of the lobby went dull after a rainy night. He knew the ballroom near the south wall needed 2 extra passes with the buffer, or it looked uneven under the chandelier. Everyone felt it, even if no one could say why. 11 years of knowing. Dexter was 53, 6 feet tall, wide through the shoulders, with big hands that had learned exactly how to hold a mop for 6 hours without his wrist giving out. His hair had gone mostly gray at the temples. His face had deep lines from early mornings and genuine smiling. His eyes were dark brown and very steady, the kind that made small children feel safe and made dishonest people feel caught. He had a daughter named Priscilla, 22, studying to be a nurse in Sacramento. She called every Sunday at noon, talking fast, and Dexter sat and listened and felt the quiet joy that only a father knows. He had a sister named Odalise, 2 streets over, who brought soup when he was sick, a balcony with tomato plants, and a 2009 Honda Civic that still got him to work each morning by 5:45. He did not have a lot, but he had enough, and he knew the difference. Every morning before the guests woke up, Dexter made those floors shine. He started in the east hallway and moved toward the lobby in long, even strokes, not hurrying, not wasting time. 2 things that look the same but take completely different strength. He sang while he worked, soft songs barely above a whisper, gospel mostly. His Eye is on the Sparrow, Stand By Me, the songs his mother played on Saturday mornings when he was small, and the house smelled like pine sol and biscuits. That Tuesday morning in October, He was finishing the lobby floor when the front door opened. The hotel did not take check-ins until 7 a.m. It was 6:18. Dexter turned slowly, expecting a delivery man. He did not expect what he saw. An old man stood in the open doorway, soaked through from the October rain. Brown canvas jacket, dark jeans, a small duffel bag. He was tall, maybe 6'2", but bent slightly at the top, the way very tall men sometimes get with age. His white hair was flat against his forehead. Water ran down the deep lines of his face. He breathed slowly, like someone who had walked a long way in the cold. His face was weathered and unmistakable. Dexter had seen that face in movies since he was 8 years old. He did not say the name out loud. He said, "Sir, you need to come in out of that rain." The old man looked at him. Something careful moved in his eyes, the look of someone not used to being helped. Then, slowly, something in his face let go. He smiled. Small, tired around the edges, but real. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think you're right." Dexter grabbed the dry hand towel from his cart. He pulled a cushioned chair from the sitting area, a real chair, not a bench, and placed it away from the draft of the door. "The desk doesn't open until 7, Dexter said, "but there's coffee in the back, made fresh 20 minutes ago." The old man sat down. He pressed the towel slowly against his face and neck, like someone whose joints ached in cold weather. "I'd be grateful," he said. Dexter nodded and walked to the kitchen. He did not run. He did not fuss. He did not pull out his phone or say the name to himself. He just got the coffee, because the man was cold and wet and tired. And that was reason enough. What Dexter did not know was that the security camera above the front desk had been recording since 6 a.m. It had caught all of it: the open door, the soaked old man, the towel, the chair, the walk to the kitchen. Every quiet second. And that ordinary recording was about to change everything. Not in the way Dexter would have feared, in a way he could not imagine. Clint Eastwood was 94 years old. He had made more than 40 films. He had won Academy Awards. He had been the mayor of Carmel by the Sea. His name was known in countries where people had never once seen a Western. None of that mattered on this particular Tuesday morning. What mattered was that his car had broken down on Route 9, just outside Millhaven, and his cell phone had died, and the October rain had started falling hard, and the only light he could see in the darkness was the Caraway Grand Hotel sign about a quarter-mile up the road, blinking orange and white in the wet black air. He had walked that quarter-mile in the rain, at 94 years old. He did it because waiting in a dead car for help that didn't know you needed it was not something Clint Eastwood was built for. He pulled his jacket tighter and walked. He did not tell the man with the mop any of that. He sat in the cushioned chair and accepted the coffee with both hands because his hands were cold and the mug was warm. He breathed in the steam before he drank. He looked around the lobby, at the gleaming floors, at the quiet amber light of the wall lamps, at the mop cart with its bottles of solution lined up neatly, at the man who had brought the coffee and was now standing a polite distance away, not hovering, not staring. Most people stared. This man did not. "You work here every morning?" Clint asked. 11 years, Dexter said. Clint looked at the floors. They were extraordinary. Not just clean, something more. The kind of shine that came from patience and from genuinely caring about something most people walked over without a thought. "These yours?" Clint asked. Dexter smiled, in a manner of speaking. Clint nodded. He understood that answer. He had spent 60 years making things that technically belonged to studios, but they were his. Everyone knew. The ownership was never in the paperwork. It was in the care. "They're beautiful," Clint said. He meant it simply. Dexter thanked him. They were quiet. Rain tapped against the tall lobby windows. Somewhere in the building, a coffee maker beeped and went still. "My car gave out on Route 9, Clint said. "AAA doesn't know yet. My phone died before the car did." Dexter reached into the chest pocket of his uniform and pulled out his phone. A Samsung with a crack down the lower left corner. He held it out. "Use mine." Clint looked at the phone. Then at Dexter. "You sure?" "Full charge," Dexter said. I always charge it before I leave. Clint took it carefully. His large hands held that cracked little phone like it mattered. He called AAA, gave them the location, thanked the dispatcher by name, and handed the phone back. 40 minutes, Clint said. Good. You can wait here. It's warm. I don't want to pull you from your work. The floors aren't going anywhere. Clint laughed, low and quiet, the kind of laugh that surprises the person laughing. It had been a long night, so they talked. For 40 minutes, while rain fell outside and the lobby held its warmth, those two men sat and talked. Not about movies or fame. Clint asked about Priscilla after Dexter mentioned her, and Dexter's whole face changed, the way a man's face changes when the thing he is proudest of rises up in his chest. She's going to be a pediatric nurse, Dexter said. Works with the little ones. That's a hard job, Clint said. She's a hard worker, Dexter said simply. Clint talked too, about his ranch and the quiet of it. About how he still drove himself on long roads because he needed to think without anyone talking at him. His staff didn't love it. He had done it for 40 years. You understand that? He asked, needing quiet. Every morning, Dexter said, 5:45. Before anybody else arrives. Just me and these floors. Clint was still for a moment. He looked at the lobby, the light, the floors, the morning beginning outside the tall windows. A man who knows where his quiet lives, he said softly. That's something. At 7:02 a.m., the staff door opened, and Tamsin Yarbrough came in, pulling off her raincoat. She stopped when she saw who was sitting in the lobby chair. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Clint stood slowly and shook Dexter's hand at the door, using both of his. You've got a good spirit, he said. The world doesn't always reward that. Don't let it change you. My mama said the same thing, Dexter told him. Clint looked at him for one quiet moment. Your mama was right. Then he was gone, walking out into the clearing rain. Dexter went back to his cart, picked up his mop, finished the floor the way he had started it. Steady, careful, with care. He did not know that Tamsin had already photographed them from across the lobby. He did not know she had posted it before she hung up her coat. He did not know the photo had been shared more than 1,000 times before 8 a.m. And he did not know that Gerald Pruitt had already seen it and was already reaching for his phone. Gerald Pruitt had been the manager of the Caraway Grand Hotel for 6 years. He was 41, fitted suits, polished shoes, hair cut short, a management degree, and a habit of phrases like brand standards and guest experience protocols, spoken in a voice that sounded like he was reading from a manual. He did not like Dexter Beaumont. He had never liked Dexter Beaumont, not since his first week as manager, when he walked the property and found floors shining like something from a magazine. He asked who was responsible. The morning man, they said. Dexter. Never late. Never a problem. Gerald had nodded and said nothing. Something tightened in his chest. If you had asked him plainly, he might have said attitude or professionalism, but those would have been covers, professional-sounding words for a feeling he could not say out loud. The truth was simpler and uglier. Dexter made him feel small, not on purpose, which was almost worse. Dexter was calm when Gerald needed people anxious, dignified when Gerald wanted people grateful. He showed up every morning without fail, and the guests, the long-timers, the ones who mattered, knew his name. They left notes at the front desk asking the staff to thank the man who kept the floors so beautiful. In 6 years, Gerald Pruitt had never received a note like that. When Gerald saw Tamsin's photo at 7:48 a.m., Dexter and Clint Eastwood at the front door, easy and warm, something cold moved through his chest. He called Tamsin into his office at 8:05. Tell me exactly what happened, he said. She told him everything. The wet old man, the towel, the coffee, the cracked phone Dexter had handed over, the 40 minutes of conversation while the mop sat on its cart. Gerald's face was perfectly still while she talked. When she finished, he said, Did Beaumont have authorization to allow an unregistered individual onto the property before check-in hours? Tamsin blinked. He was helping someone stranded in the rain. Did he have authorization? She looked at the floor. No, not technically. Thank you, Tamsin. That'll be all. She left. She glanced back once at the doorway. Gerald did not see it. He sat alone at his desk and opened the hotel policy manual, a document he knew well. He found the paragraph on unauthorized access during restricted hours. He found the one on personal device use during shifts. He found the one on extended personal interaction with guests outside assigned duties. He built his case the way a certain kind of man builds things, carefully, with the conclusion already decided before the first brick went down. Each rule Dexter had bent. Not broken, bent. The way any decent person bends a rule when a human being is cold and needs help. But Gerald was not looking for truth. He was looking for permission. At 9:30 a.m., he called Dexter into the office. Dexter came in still wearing his uniform, the faint smell of floor solution around him. He sat the way he always sat, straight, unhurried, easy, as if this office and Gerald Pruitt were just two more ordinary things in the world. Gerald slid the printed document across the desk. "I've reviewed the incident from this morning," he said. Dexter looked at the paper. "The incident," he said slowly. "Allowing an unauthorized individual onto the property before check-in hours, personal device use during a scheduled shift, abandonment of assigned duties to engage in an extended personal conversation." A beat of quiet. "The man was 94 years old," Dexter said. "He was soaked through. He had walked in the rain." "Those are not the standards we hold staff to," Gerald said. "The standards," Dexter repeated softly, almost to himself. "This is a formal written warning, if you'd like to respond." "What's the other paper?" Dexter said. Gerald paused. He straightened the second sheet. "Given that this is not your first notation in your file." "My last notation was 4 years ago," Dexter said, "when I told the kitchen manager he should not speak to the dishwashers the way he was speaking to them." "Regardless, given the cumulative record and today's violation, the hotel has decided to end your employment, effective immediately." The room went very quiet. Down the hall, a cart rattled past. Near the elevator, someone laughed at something. Rain tapped at the window. Dexter did not shout. He did not cry. He did not touch anything on the desk. He looked at Gerald Pruitt with those dark brown steady eyes and said, "Gerald, I helped an old man out of the rain." Gerald looked at his desk. "I understand you feel that way, but the hotel—" 11 years, Dexter said. "Never late, never once absent without a call. I trained 4 people who were promoted past me. I stayed late without extra pay when we were short. I gave this job everything." Gerald said nothing. "And you're letting me go," Dexter said, "for giving a cold man a warm cup of coffee." He stood. He was very tall in that moment, taller than Gerald had ever registered. He signed nothing, said nothing more. He walked out of the office, down the hall, through the lobby, past his floors, shining like still water, and out through the front door. The rain had stopped. He stood on the steps of the Caraway Grand for the last time and breathed the cold, clean October air. And next to the deep ache of 11 years ending, he felt something unexpected, something quiet, something that felt almost like peace. He didn't know why yet, but he would. The official termination letter arrived at Dexter's apartment at 12:17 p.m. A messenger knocked and left it wedged in the doorframe, a crisp white envelope with the Caraway Grand's gold-embossed logo in the corner. The C looked like a crown. Dexter had always thought so. He stood in the doorway and opened it. 3 paragraphs, professional language, policy section references. The words, "We wish you well in future endeavors," at the bottom, copied from a template, not written by a person who meant them. Dexter read it once. He set it on the kitchen table. He filled a small watering can at the sink and took it out to the balcony. He had 4 tomato plants. 3 had gone into their fall sleep, brown at the stem, finished for the season. But the 4th was still going, stubborn and green, still reaching toward the pale October sun. 1 small tomato clung to it, hard and not quite red. Dexter touched it with 2 fingers, the way you touch something you are rooting for. "Hard-headed," he said softly. The way his mother said it when he refused to quit something, not as a criticism, as the highest kind of praise she knew. He watered the plants and went back inside and sat at the kitchen table and looked at the letter without touching it again. Then he thought about numbers, because numbers didn't have feelings, and right now that was useful. He had $2,340 in checking, $4,800 in savings, money he had built slowly, month by month for Priscilla, in case she needed help with tuition or books or anything at all. He did not want to touch it. It was hers, even if she didn't know he thought of it that way. His rent was $890, car insurance $127, phone $45, electric in October around $60. Groceries, he could run lean. 3 months, maybe a little more if he was careful. 3 months to find work. At 53 years old, with a resume that said, Janitor, 11 years. He rubbed both hands over his face and held them there a moment. Then he picked up his cracked Samsung and called his sister. Odalis Beaumont was 50 years old and worked as a home health aide. She had opinions about everything and never kept them to herself. She was the loudest person Dexter knew and, because of that, the safest. When he told her what had happened, she went silent for 5 full seconds. Then, that little rat. Odalis, that little press suit rat fired you for helping a man in the rain? He cited the policy manual. I will cite him something, she said. I will. Odalis. I'm just saying what I'm saying. I know what you're saying. A pause. Then her voice dropped, became the voice she used when she stopped being his advocate and just became his sister. Are you okay, Dex? He thought about it honestly. I think so, he said. I think I am. You sound too calm. That scares me more than if you were upset. I'm not going to fall apart over Gerald Pruitt, Dexter said. That man doesn't deserve my falling apart. So what are you going to do? Look for work, he said. What else? She was quiet. He could hear her choosing words. That photo Tamsin posted, she said carefully. What about it? It's everywhere, Dex. He hadn't looked at his phone since morning. He pressed the home button now. 14 missed texts, tagged in something on Facebook 6 times. He had no Twitter, no Instagram. Didn't want them. How everywhere, he said. 40,000 shares before noon. Every local news channel in California. There's a woman on Channel 7 talking about you right now. He was quiet. Gerald seen it? Dexter asked. Gerald's definitely seen it. The question is, what he does about it. Dexter looked at the termination letter on the table. 3 careful paragraphs. The gold-embossed C. He won't do anything, Dexter said. Gerald Pruitt doesn't do things that require admitting he was wrong. Then somebody else will, Odalis said. Like who? She made a sound he knew. The one she made when she was holding something back. Odalis. Just stay home tonight, she said. Let things settle. I wasn't planning on going anywhere. A beat. Dex. Yeah. I'm proud of you, she said. Quietly, completely, for helping that man, for not making it into something big, for just doing right because it was right. He closed his eyes. Mama raised us that way, he said. She did, Odalis said. She absolutely did. He set the phone down. He sat in his quiet apartment. The letter on the table. The October afternoon moving past the window. Millhaven going about its business outside. 42 miles away, Clint Eastwood was reading the same news story on his phone. He read it to the end. He set the phone down. He was not calm at all. There is a certain kind of tired that has nothing to do with sleep. It lives in the chest, not the legs. It comes from carrying something heavy with nowhere to put it down. Dexter felt it walking back from the bus stop, felt it in the cold air on his face, and the slow way his feet found the pavement. He had gone out after all. Not because Odalis told him not to. Mostly because sitting in the apartment with the termination letter on the table had made the walls feel like they were leaning in. He needed to move, to be somewhere that wasn't that room. So he had walked to the stop on Clement Street and ridden the number 14 bus to the end of the line and back. He sat by the window and watched people come and go. A woman with groceries in both arms, a teenager with headphones, an old man in a veteran's cap who nodded at Dexter the way strangers sometimes do when they recognize something in each other. He let the bus do what motion does when you need it. He was 6 blocks from home, walking along Mallory Avenue. The October evening was cool and smelled like someone's fireplace. The oak trees along Mallory had gone yellow and orange, and every now and then a leaf let go and drifted down through a streetlight like it had all the time in the world. Dexter walked with his hands in his pockets. He thought about the first day at the Caraway Grand. He had been 42, fresh off 8 months of unemployment after the plant, where he had worked for 12 years, moved its operations south and closed without warning. 8 months of Priscilla being 11 and needing things. School supplies, shoes that fit, a dentist visit he kept postponing. Things a father is supposed to provide. The weight of not providing them had pressed on him every morning. He had taken the hotel job because it was the first offer with benefits. Medical, dental, a small life insurance policy. Things that made him feel, for the first time in a year, like he was building something rather than watching something fall. It was not what he had planned, but it was something to hold, and he had held it, with both hands, for 11 years. He passed the laundromat on the corner of Mallory and Fifth. Through the window he could see the machines turning and a young woman in a plastic chair, a textbook open on her knees, feet tucked up under her, waiting with the focused patience of someone who knew how to use every spare minute. She reminded him of Priscilla. Priscilla had called at 3 o'clock. Someone in her nursing program had sent her the photo and the news story. She had cried a little, not much, because Priscilla was not a crier, never had been, but a little. The quick, fierce kind that comes when you are angry and sad and love someone all at the same time. "Daddy," she had said, "how can they do that?" "They can because of the rules," he said. "The rules are wrong." "Sometimes they are," he said. "But hear me, I would do it again. I would give that man a chair and a cup of coffee every single time. You understand me?" "I understand. Don't worry about me." "I'm going to worry, Daddy." "I know, but don't let it pull you from your studies. You being there, becoming what you're becoming, that matters more than anything Gerald Pruitt will ever do. You hear me?" "I hear you," she said, quiet and steady. "That's my girl," he said. He had kept his voice steady through all of it. Now alone under the October trees, he let his shoulders drop, just a little, enough to feel the weight of the day without fighting it. He was not a self-pity man. His mother had taught him that self-pity was a room whose door could lock behind you. He visited and always left. But tonight he let himself feel the weight of 11 years. The floors he knew better than his own hands. The hum of the buffer before dawn. The smell of the solution, clean and sharp. The way the shine came up slowly and then all at once. He would miss it. He let himself miss it. He breathed it out slowly into the October dark. And then he kept walking. Because that was the other lesson. You feel it, you breathe it, then you walk. He was half a block from his building when he saw the car. Black, long, clean in a way that said money. Parked directly in front of his building like it belonged there, which on this street it absolutely did not. He slowed. A young man in a dark jacket was standing beside it. He stood up straight when he saw Dexter coming. "Mr. Beaumont?" Dexter stopped. "That's me. My name is Philip Weston. I work for Mr. Eastwood. He'd like to speak with you tonight." Dexter looked at the car. He looked at Philip Weston. He thought about 618 that morning, about how the simplest thing you do can become the biggest thing, without any warning at all. "All right," Dexter said slowly. "Let me get my jacket." Dexter's mother was named Celestine Beaumont. She had died 6 years ago at 79, in the same Birmingham, Alabama house, where she had raised 4 children before the family moved to California in 1987. She went on a Thursday morning in April, in her own bed, with the window open so she could hear the birds, exactly as she had said she wanted. She had worked as a housekeeper for 31 years, cleaned floors and bathrooms in silver, pressed curtains, made guest rooms beautiful for people who never learned her name. She did it without complaint, without bitterness, without once making her children feel ashamed. She treated the work like a classroom, herself the only teacher. "When you clean something," she told him once, he was 9, helping scrub the kitchen floor on a Saturday morning while the house smelled like pine sol and quiet. "You're not just cleaning it, you're saying this matters. This space matters. The people who walk on this floor, they matter. That's what you're saying every time." He had never forgotten that, not once in 44 years. He thought about her as Philip Weston drove him through the quiet Millhaven streets. Philip drove without small talk or explanation. No nervous filling of silence. Dexter appreciated that. He sat in the back and watched the dark streets and thought about Celestine. She would make it simple. She always did. The way people who have lived hard learn to, because they run out of energy for things that aren't true. She would say, "You helped somebody. Good. Now go see what comes of it." No drama, no ceremony, just go see. The car turned down a quiet road lined with pines and stopped in front of a house set back from the street. Not large. A rental, plain and neat, a porch light burning, 2 wooden chairs facing the dark yard. A house that said I needed somewhere quiet, not somewhere to be seen. Clint Eastwood was sitting in one of the chairs. He stood when Dexter got out. Flannel shirt, dark slacks, practical shoes with no flash. In the porch light, he looked like what he was. A very old man who had lived enormously and arrived, at the far end of it all, at something resembling stillness. He held out his hand. Dexter shook it. "Come sit down," Clint said. They sat. Philip appeared with 2 cups of coffee, without being asked, set them down between the chairs, and was gone. Dexter noticed. He almost said something about how coffee kept finding its way into this story at the right moments. He decided to keep it. "I saw the news," Clint said. "I figured you would. They fired you." "Yes, sir." Clint's jaw moved slowly, the way a man's does when he is choosing words with real care. "Because of me," he said. "Because of Gerald Pruitt," Dexter said. "Not you. You didn't ask me to do anything wrong. I knew the rules and I decided a cold old man in the rain mattered more. I'd make the same choice today." Clint looked at him. Those eyes were still sharp, the kind that had been reading people for 94 years and knew exactly what they were seeing. "You're being generous," Clint said. "I'm being honest," Dexter said. "Generous and honest feel the same when you're telling the truth." Clint was quiet for a moment. "You're not angry?" he asked. Dexter thought about it honestly, the way a man does when someone asks a real question and deserves a real answer. "I'm disappointed," he said. "Anger burns fast and leaves you empty. Disappointment is slower. It's sadness with knowledge attached. I know what Gerald Pruitt is. That's the disappointing part." Clint nodded once, slow. "Your mother teach you to talk like that?" he asked. Dexter looked at him. "In a manner of speaking." "You mentioned her this morning," Clint said quietly. "When I told you she was right about keeping your spirit." "Her name was Celestine," Dexter said. "She was a housekeeper for 31 years. She used to say that cleaning something was a way of telling it that it mattered." Clint looked out at the dark yard for a long moment. "She was right," he said. "She usually was," Dexter said. They sat in the kind of silence that only works between people who are both being honest, not empty, waited. The kind that means something real just passed, and neither person needs to name it. Then Clint said, "I want to help you. I have something in mind, but I want to hear from you first." Dexter set down his coffee cup. "Mr. Eastwood," he said, "that's kind of you. But there's something I need to tell you before we go any further." Clint waited. Dexter told him. And the old man, who had faced down every kind of human being in 94 years of living, went very still. Very, very still indeed. Like a man who has just heard something that rearranges everything pertaining. By 8 p.m. on Tuesday, Millhaven knew. In a town of 42,000 people, word moved the way it always does, in places where people actually know each other. Not trending, traveling. From the barbershop on Lincoln, to the diner on Prospect, to the pharmacy on Fifth, into living rooms through phone screens and televisions and dinner table conversations that stopped mid-sentence. "Did you hear about the man at the Caraway Grand? The janitor? They fired him? For helping Clint Eastwood? My God. That Pruitt. I always said that man was, who fires someone for giving a person coffee? 11 years. He's been there 11 years. At Rosalind's Kitchen on Prospect Street, open since 1974, the owner, Georgette Tillman, had switched the TV to Channel 7 the moment a customer told her what happened. Georgette wore her silver hair in a thick braid and had a way of looking at dishonest people that made them feel found out. She stood behind the counter with her arms folded and watched. The whole dinner crowd went quiet with her. The Channel 7 reporter stood on the sidewalk outside the Caraway Grand. They showed Tamsin's photo, Dexter and Clint at the front door. The handshake, both of them easy and warm, like two men who had simply shared a good morning. The crowd watched without speaking. Then Georgette said, from her spot behind the counter, "I know that man. Dexter Beaumont comes in here every Sunday morning, orders the same thing every single time. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, black coffee. Leaves a $5 tip on a $9 check." Nobody said a word. "Every single time," Georgette said, quieter, like she was saying it to herself now. 3 booths back, a retired teacher named Harriet Odom, who had taught 6th grade at Millhaven Elementary for 27 years, set down her fork. "His daughter is in nursing school up in Sacramento," Harriet said. "He's been paying for it out of his own pocket every semester." The diner stayed quiet for a long moment. Then someone paid their check and left, and then another person. And both of them walked out looking like they were going somewhere with a purpose, which they were. At the hardware store on Maple, Theodore Speaks heard the story from a customer just before closing. Theodore was a big, sun-worn man who had run the store for 22 years and knew Dexter the way you know someone you've respected from a distance. Not close friends, but the kind of people whose nod on the street means something. When he heard what happened, he put both hands flat on the counter and left them there for a full minute, like he needed something solid beneath him. Then he called his wife. "We're going to do something," he said. "What kind of something?" "I don't know yet," he said, "but something real." By 9 p.m., a woman named Renata Foss, who had run the Millhaven Community Facebook group for 4 years and had a gift for finding the words a town needed, posted something simple. It said, "Dexter Beaumont served this community for 11 years, with dignity and grace. He helped a stranger in need and lost his job for it. I don't know exactly what we can do, but I'd like to find out. Who's with me?" By 11 p.m., the post had 1,200 comments. By midnight, it had 4,000. Someone started a fundraiser. Someone called the local AM radio station, which stayed on the air past its normal sign-off to take calls. Someone, and nobody could ever quite figure out who, taped a handwritten sign on the front door of the Caraway Grand Hotel that read, "This hotel fired a good man for doing the right thing. We remember." It was still there when the morning shift arrived. Gerald Pruitt had not been reached for comment. His phone had been ringing since 6. He stopped answering at 7. He sat in his nice house on the good side of Millhaven, the kind of house where you could almost pretend the outside world was optional if the curtains stayed closed. He sat on his couch and watched the news and scrolled through posts and felt something move through his chest that was cold and slow and growing. Not guilt. He was not ready for guilt yet. That would take longer. What he felt was closer to fear, the specific kind that comes not from doing something wrong, but from doing something wrong in front of everyone. He understood now what he had not understood that morning. He had made a visible mistake, not a moral one. He had not arrived there yet, a visible one. And visible mistakes had consequences that no policy manual could cover. His phone buzzed on the cushion beside him. He looked at the name on the screen, Douglas Fitch, Regional Director, San Francisco, a man who, until this morning, had been entirely satisfied with Gerald Pruitt's performance. Gerald stared at the name. He let it ring. He got up and poured a glass of water and drank it at the kitchen sink, looking out at his dark backyard. And in that silence, a question arrived, the way the most honest ones do, quietly, without asking permission, like it planned to stay. The question was, what would have happened if you had just let it go? He had no good answer, but the question sat there through the whole long night. And it was still sitting there in the morning when everything changed. And Gerald Pruitt found he had nothing left to say. Wednesday morning arrived gray and cold, the kind of morning that feels like the sky has made a decision and isn't taking questions about it. At 6:15 a.m., Gerald Pruitt was already at the hotel. He had not slept, or he had slept in pieces, an hour here, 40 minutes there, which is worse than not sleeping because it drops you in the space between rested and broken, where everything feels unreal. He was wearing his best suit, the charcoal one saved for corporate inspections. He had put it on the way a person puts on armor, as if the right clothes might do what the right words couldn't. His desk held his third cup of coffee, a phone with 17 unread messages from Douglas Fitch, 2 from the PR department, and 1 from a national news producer asking for a statement. His laptop was open to a statement that had been half-finished since 11 p.m. It was hard to write because every version of it sounded like exactly what it was, something a person says when they have done something they wish they could take back. He had gotten as far as the Caraway Grand has always prided itself on the consistent application of. When the front desk line buzzed, it was Tamsin. Mr. Pruitt. Her voice was careful, the voice of someone carrying something fragile. There are some people out front. What kind of people? A pause, short but long enough. A lot of them, she said. Gerald set down his cup and walked to the lobby. Through the tall front windows, he could see the steps of the Caraway Grand, and on those steps, standing in the early gray morning without signs or chants or any kind of performance, were approximately 40 people. He recognized some of them. Theodore Speaks from the hardware store, big and still in his work jacket. Georgette Tillman from the diner, silver braid over her shoulder, thermos in both hands. Harriet Odom, the retired teacher, standing straight in a blue coat. A cluster of younger people who had clearly not been to bed. A woman Gerald didn't know holding a handwritten sign face down at her side, as if she'd brought it and then decided not to raise it. They weren't chanting, they weren't shouting, they were just there, present, looking at the hotel the way people look at something they want to make sure gets seen. Tamsin materialized at Gerald's elbow without a sound. "What do they want?" Gerald said. "I think they want to be seen," Tamsin said. He turned to look at her. She was 24, had worked here 3 years, grown up in Millhaven, and knew Dexter Beaumont the way people who grow up in a town know its constants. Quietly, completely. The way you know someone until the day they're gone and you realize how much of the place they were holding up. She met Gerald's eyes without blinking. "Tamsin," Gerald said, "I want you to understand that everything done yesterday was done in full accordance with—" "I know the policies," she said. Her voice was not unkind, but it was not warm either. It was the voice of someone who knew the rules and had decided they were not the point. She went back to the desk. Gerald stood at the window alone. At 7:30 a.m., a black car came down the street and parked across from the hotel. Gerald watched it. No one got out. The car sat with its engine off, doors closed, waiting for the right moment. Then the back door on the far side opened, and Dexter Beaumont stepped out onto the sidewalk. He was wearing a plain dark shirt, dark slacks, and the good shoes, the ones Gerald had seen Dexter wear on the days that mattered. He looked calm, more than calm. He looked, and Gerald would think about this word for days, unmoved. Not unmoved like indifference, unmoved like something solid, like a tree that had been through enough weather to stop being afraid of it. The 40 people on the steps saw him. There was no cheer, no applause. It would have been wrong, and everyone there knew it. A few people nodded. Georgette raised her thermos. Theodore Speaks put a hand briefly to his chest. Dexter nodded back at all of them. Then he turned and looked directly at the front window, at Gerald. Their eyes met through the lobby glass. Neither of them moved for a moment. Then the other rear door of the black car swung open, and Clint Eastwood stepped out. Brown canvas jacket, hands easy at his sides. He stood on the sidewalk and looked at the Caraway Grand the way a man looks at something he has made up his mind about. Gerald Pruitt's mouth opened. Nothing came out. From around the corner, a white news van appeared. Then another. A woman in a red coat walking fast with a microphone. A cameraman jogging beside her. Then another car. Then another. Gerald stood in his charcoal suit in the lobby of his own hotel, coffee in hand, and understood with perfect cold clarity that this morning was unlike any morning that had ever come before. He opened his mouth again. Still nothing. He would stay speechless for several minutes more. Because of what happened next, Clint Eastwood did not do press conferences. He had not done one in years. He communicated through his work, through the rare dry interviews he permitted, and through brief statements his staff issued that said a great deal while revealing very little. He had spent a lifetime protecting the distance between his public face and his private one. But he stood on the sidewalk in front of the Caraway Grand on that cold Wednesday morning and looked at the woman in the red coat with the microphone, and he spoke. "I want to be clear about what happened yesterday. I walked into that hotel soaking wet at 6 in the morning. Stranded, phone dead. A man named Dexter Beaumont gave me a towel, got me a chair, made me coffee, and let me use his phone. He did it without fuss and without asking for anything. He treated me the way you treat any human being who needs help. Not like someone famous, just like a person. And he got fired for it." He paused. The microphone trembled slightly in the woman's hand. Behind her, the cameraman had gone completely still. "I have a lot of things I could say," Clint continued, "and I've learned over a long life that most of them are better left unsaid. But I'll say this. If your policy tells you to fire a man for giving a cold person a warm cup of coffee, your policy is wrong. Some things are just not complicated." He stopped. He did not take questions. He turned and walked to where Dexter stood, at the edge of the crowd. What happened next was not caught cleanly by any camera, because the crowd shifted the way crowds do when something private is happening that doesn't belong to them. Clint stepped close to Dexter and said something that only Dexter could hear. Dexter went very still. Then he nodded once, slowly, and his eyes, steady and dark through everything, went bright. Inside the lobby, Gerald Pruitt had found a chair and was sitting in it. In his own hotel, in his best charcoal suit, sitting in a lobby chair the way a man sits when his legs have made a decision his pride hasn't caught up to. Douglas Fitch had called 3 times. Gerald had let the first 2 go. He answered the third because letting it ring any longer was its own kind of answer. Fitch didn't shout. That was what Gerald had been bracing for. But Fitch spoke low and even, each word placed with the care of someone who wanted them to stay. "Gerald, this is a hospitality business. The entire premise of what we do is making people feel welcome. What happened yesterday is the opposite of that. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "I understand," Gerald said. "Clint Eastwood is standing outside your hotel on national news right now. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "I understand. I'm flying in tomorrow. We are going to have a direct conversation about the future of this location's management. I want a full written review of yesterday's decision on my desk by end of business today." He hung up without waiting. Gerald set his phone on his knee and stared at the lobby floor. Tamsin was at the front desk, working the phones with quiet efficiency. She had not looked at Gerald once since he came back from the window. He noticed. He understood what it meant. Through the glass, he could see Dexter talking with Theodore Speaks, shaking his hand, saying something that made the big man nod slowly with his eyes down. Clint stood slightly apart, hands in his pockets, letting the moment belong to someone else. And Gerald Pruitt, for the first time in 6 years, could not build a case. There was no paragraph for this, not in any policy document he had ever written or revised. There were no rules for what it looked like when a community stood on the steps of your building because you had fired a good man. The question from the night before found him again. What would have happened if you had just let it go? He knew now, in the cold, sober light of Wednesday morning, exactly what would have happened. Everything would have been fine. Dexter would have finished his shift, gone home, come back the next day. The floors would have kept shining. The guests would have kept leaving their little notes. The hotel would have kept running. And Gerald would have had to keep sitting across from Dexter at quarterly reviews, struggling with the fact that a man who mopped floors had more dignity in his silence than Gerald had in all his words. He had chosen the firing over the feeling. He had fired a good man to make himself feel less small, and it had made him smaller than he had ever been. He stood up. He straightened his jacket. He walked to the front door, pushed it open, and stepped out into the October air. The crowd saw him. They didn't move. They became aware, the way a group of people does when someone arrives who changes the weight of the air. Gerald walked down the steps. He stopped in front of Dexter Beaumont, and Gerald Pruitt, who had spent his adult life constructing arguments and finding ways to be right, said the only true thing he had said in years. "I was wrong about this." Not loud, not performed, not dressed up in language. Just said. Dexter looked at him. Something moved across Dexter's face. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Something quieter and more complete. "I know," Dexter said. And that was all. For now. Because what no one on those steps knew, not the crowd, not the cameras, not Gerald, was what Clint had whispered to Dexter by the car. The thing that was still a secret. The thing that would change everything. 3 weeks before the night his car broke down on Route 9, Clint Eastwood had driven through Millhaven on purpose. He had not told his staff. He had not told his family. He had told no one, because what he was doing was not yet something he had words for, and Clint had learned long ago not to speak before words were ready. He had come because of a letter. 12 years earlier, before Dexter came to the Caraway Grand, before Priscilla started nursing school, Celestine Beaumont had written a letter to the production office of a film Clint was making, one that shot partially on location in Millhaven with a small crew hired from town. The letter was not a fan letter. It was a thank you note. Celestine wrote that her son had worked as a production assistant on the Millhaven shoot for 2 weeks, moving equipment, managing logistics, keeping things organized. Nothing glamorous. But one of the crew had pulled Dexter aside and told him quietly that the production had noticed him. The way he worked, steady, careful, without drama, was rare. That if he ever wanted to pursue this world, there were paths. Dexter had thanked the crew member and said he couldn't. He had a daughter at home and a life that needed staying put. He couldn't chase something uncertain when certainty was what Priscilla needed from him. To Celestine had written the letter to say thank you for the small kindness of seeing her son, of noticing him, of treating his dignity like it was worth something. Clint had never received it directly. Letters went to the production office, were sorted and filed, and most never reached him. A mother's handwritten thank you had no business attached to it. But 12 years later, a young archivist cataloging correspondence for a documentary about Clint's career found the letter in a box. She recognized what it was. She flagged it. Clint read it on a September evening, sitting alone on his porch in Carmel with a glass of water and the last of the daylight. He read it twice. He set it down. He sat there for a long time, because Celestine had done something in that letter that most people never do. She had written not just a thank you, but a testimony. At the bottom, in careful cursive, "My son is the most dignified man I have ever known. He will spend his life in service because that is who he is. Not because the world gave him better options, but because service is where he puts his wholeness. I pray that someone, somewhere, sees him the way that young man on your crew saw him, not as what he does, as who he is." Clint had read those words on a September evening. He had thought about them for 3 weeks. He had driven down Route 9 on a Tuesday in October, not entirely by accident. The breakdown wasn't planned, but he had been circling Millhaven for days, not quite sure what he was looking for, until the car gave out and the rain came, and a sign blinked orange and white in the dark ahead, and the man with the mop had seen him. He told Dexter all of this on the sidewalk, standing close so only Dexter could hear, while the cameras gathered and the crowd stayed quiet, and Gerald Pruitt was still inside. He told it the way he told every important thing, low and straight, no decoration, no apology. Dexter had gone very still, the way a person goes still when the world rearranges into a shape they weren't expecting. "You read her letter," Dexter said. "I did. She never told me she wrote it." "I know," Clint said. "She sounds like someone who wouldn't." Dexter looked down at the sidewalk and was quiet. When he looked up, something in his face had changed, something deep and private, the kind that moves in a man when he discovers his mother was still caring for him long after he thought she no longer could. "She died 6 years ago," he said. "I know," Clint said. "The archivist found that too." They stood together in the October cold while the city moved around them. "I want to offer you something," Clint said. "Not charity, not pity. I have a property in Carmel, a main house, a guest cottage, and a caretaker position that's been open 2 years because I haven't found someone I trusted enough." Dexter looked at him carefully. "Full-time, good pay. The property needs someone who cares about the details the way you cared about those floors. The cottage would be yours to live in. Priscilla could visit whenever she wanted." The crowd murmured softly behind them. Somewhere a camera clicked. "That's very generous," Dexter said. "It's a fair trade," Clint said. "I need someone I trust. You're the only person I've met in a long time who gave me something without wanting anything back for it. Dexter was quiet for a moment. I want something back, he said. Clint raised an eyebrow. Tell me about your mother, Dexter said. Not today. Sometime. Tell me what she saw in you. She saw something in me that changed my life without my knowing it. I think she saw something in you too. I'd like to know that story. Clint Eastwood looked at Dexter Beaumont for a long, still moment. The old man, who had played outlaws and heroes and every human type in between, who had spent 60 years saying everything with a look, blinked. Just once. It's a deal, he said. Dexter gave himself 2 weeks. Not because he needed that long to pack. He had never accumulated much, but because Millhaven deserved a proper goodbye. Leaving a place well mattered just as much as arriving well. He packed his apartment in careful stages, one room at a time. The tomato plants went to Odalise first. 3 had finished for the season, brown at the stem and done. But the 4th, the stubborn one, with the small green tomato that refused to ripen, was still going. He carried the pot to Odalise's porch himself and told her to put it where it could catch the afternoon light. It'll turn, he said. Give it time. It's just like you, Odalise said, refusing to quit. His books went into boxes, then Theodore Speak's truck, then Odalise's spare room to wait. His kitchen things went to a younger woman in the building who had almost nothing. His furniture, modest and worn and well used, he left for whoever came next. His mother's photograph he packed himself, last of all. It was Celestine in her good church hat, the ivory one she wore on Easter and the first Sunday of every month, looking at something just outside the frame, the way she always looked, as if she could see further ahead than everyone else, and found that interesting rather than frightening. He wrapped it in a flannel shirt and set it at the center of his bag. He said goodbye to Millhaven quietly, without ceremony, but fully. His last Sunday breakfast at Rosalind's kitchen, 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, black coffee. When Georgette came around the counter and sat across from him, something she had never done in all the years he'd been coming, he just waited. This town is proud of you, she said. You know that. I know, Dexter said. You made us look at what was right. When things happen the way they happen to you, people choose. Get hard, get bitter, or keep on being who they are. She paused. You kept on. I don't know that I had much choice in it, he said. Georgette looked at him over her tea. That's exactly how you know it's character, she said. When it doesn't feel like a choice. He left his $5 tip on the table. Harriet Odom pressed a book of poetry into his hands outside the pharmacy, margins full of her notes, and said she hoped he'd read them someday when they'd land right. Theodore Speaks shook his hand on the sidewalk for a long time and said almost nothing, which was exactly right. He said goodbye to Odalise on a Thursday evening on her front porch, the October air cool, the neighborhood going quiet. They held each other the way people hold each other when the distance is temporary but still feels bigger than they expected. Call me when you get there, she said. I'll call you halfway, he said, and when I arrive, and the morning after. Good, she said. That was enough. He drove the 2009 Civic, finally with new brake pads, south on the 101 toward Carmel. The October sun was low and golden. The hills were gold and green, and the ocean kept appearing to his right and disappearing, just long enough each time to remind him it was there. He drove with the radio off. He thought about his mother, about the letter written 12 years ago and sent into the world on his behalf without a word, without needing credit or acknowledgement, just doing the right thing, the way she had always done everything. Mama, he said softly, to the car and the hills and the flickering ocean. You were always 3 steps ahead of me. He smiled. He kept driving. He arrived in Carmel as the last light faded from the sky. The property sat behind a wooden gate on a hillside road. Pine trees, bougainvillea climbing a stone wall, a gravel path leading to the main house. And beside it, small and clean and real, the guest cottage with a stone porch and 2 wooden chairs and a view of the garden going dark. There was a note on the door. He knew the handwriting before he finished reading the first word. Welcome. The floors in the main house need attention. I suspect you'll know what to do. C.E. Dexter read it twice. He folded it and put it in his shirt pocket, close. He went inside and turned on the lights. He stood in the small, clean space that was going to be his home, and felt, for the first time in a long time, exactly where he was supposed to be. 3 months later, a letter arrived at the Caraway Grand Hotel in Millhaven. It was addressed to the staff. Not to Gerald Pruitt, not to Douglas Fitch, not to management. To the staff. Tamsin found it at the front desk on a Monday morning in January. She recognized the Carmel return address. She called quietly to a few of the others. By the time she read it aloud, 8 people had gathered in the back office. Housekeepers, kitchen staff, the maintenance man, 2 desk clerks, and a newer housekeeper who had started after Dexter left and already knew his story. Gerald Pruitt was not invited. Tamsin read it aloud. This is what it said. Dear friends at the Caraway Grand, I have been thinking about what to write for 3 months. I don't have fancy words. My mother said plain words told the truth better than decorated ones. She was right. I'll try. I don't know all your names, but I know what you do. I know what your hands do before guests wake up and after they sleep. I know what it costs to serve without being noticed. I did it for 11 years. My mother did it for 31. Let me tell you about those floors. The night I was fired, I walked through the lobby on my way out and looked at the floor I had mopped that morning. It was shining. Not because anyone would put my name on a plaque, not because the guests would ever know who made it that way. It was shining because I had decided every morning that the floor mattered, that the people who walked on it mattered. That is the work, all of it. You don't have to be seen to matter. You do not have to be thanked to do something good. You do not have to stay in a place that does not see you. Your worth is not decided by who keeps you. It is what you bring to the work, and why. I brought it for my mother, for my daughter, for myself, because it was the truth of who I am. No one can fire that. There is something else. I kept it quiet because it was not yet mine to share. It is now. On that Tuesday morning, before any cameras or news, Clint Eastwood told me I looked like a man who had once worked on a film set. I had. Years ago. 2 weeks. Moving equipment, keeping things organized. Nothing glamorous. He said a crew member had noticed me, that the way I worked, steady, without need for attention, was rare. One word for it. Presence. Not the kind that belongs on a screen, the kind that belongs in a life. The kind you feel from a person who is completely, honestly themselves. I had forgotten those 2 weeks. They felt like a footnote, something that almost became something and then didn't. Here is the secret I kept. The crew member who noticed me, the one who sent someone to say there were paths, was Clint Eastwood. He was on set. He sent the messenger. He had been carrying that 12 years. Just as my mother carried her letter for 12 years. My mother, without telling me, without needing credit, wrote to the production office to thank them for seeing her son. She wrote that she hoped someone would one day see me that way, not as what I do, as who I am. Her letter found Clint, and Clint, guided by that prayer, found his way down Route 9 on a rainy Tuesday in October. I don't know if you believe in things working that way. I do, quietly, the way I believe in clean floors. Before I left Millhaven, I spoke to a lawyer. 11 clean years, 1 notation for standing up for the dishwashers, a termination for giving a cold man coffee, 3 words from the lawyer, clear wrongful termination. The hotel chain settled. I won't share the amount, but I'll tell you what I did with part of it. I started a scholarship. It is called the Celestine Beaumont Memorial Scholarship for children of hotel and hospitality workers in California pursuing degrees in healthcare. The first recipient is announced this month. I started it for my mother, the woman who spent 31 years cleaning other people's floors and raised 4 children who know the difference between right and wrong. I started it because she saw me when no one else did. Someone else saw her. Her letter traveled 12 years. Then the rain came, the car broke, the floor shone, and a cup of coffee was made. Here we are. I am well. The floors in Carmel are mine to care for now. Priscilla visited last weekend. We sat on the stone porch and watched the garden go dark. She talked about her rotations. I talked about the bougainvillea on the wall. One of the finest evenings of my life. Odalise is keeping the tomato plant alive. She says it's thriving, which is very me, and she means it as a compliment. To whoever is mopping those floors now, do it like it matters, because it does. All of it. Your labor is not lost. It is going somewhere, I promise. With respect, gratitude, and all the love one honest person can send to another, Dexter Beaumont, Carmel, California. P.S. Tamsin, I know you're the one reading this. Thank you for the photo. I know it cost you something. It shouldn't have. Don't regret it. When Tamsin finished reading, the back office was very quiet. Someone was crying. The maintenance man, 14 years at the hotel, never known to show much, stood with his arms folded and his eyes bright. Nobody spoke. On the other side of the wall, Gerald Pruitt sat alone at his desk. He had not been invited, but the walls were thin. He had always known that. He just never thought about what it meant. He heard every word. He sat through the quiet after the reading, the low voices, the sound of people returning to work. He got up and walked out, past the front desk, through the lobby. He stopped on the floor and looked down at it. It was shining, the way it had always shone, morning after morning, before anyone arrived, tended by hands that never needed to be told why. Gerald Pruitt stood on that floor, and for the first time in 6 years of walking across it, he understood what it was saying. What it had always said. It took a long time, but he got there. Some people do. That's the thing about honest floors. They keep shining whether you see them or not. They just keep shining. And that is the story of Dexter Beaumont, a man who mopped floors for 11 years and never once forgot why it mattered. Before you go, drop a comment and tell us where you are watching from. We have people joining us from all over the world, and we love knowing where you are. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it tells the world that stories about dignity and kindness still matter. And if you believe that doing the right thing, even when it costs you, is always worth it, subscribe to this channel. Every single story we share is built around that idea. Hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss one. One last thing, there is a video on your screen right now. Click it, we picked it just for you, and we think you are going to love it just as much as this one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And keep being the kind of person who gives a cold man a warm cup of coffee. See you in the next one.